Hello, friends. Welcome to our new members of the group. So super excited to have you here. We have a lot to discuss in this group, so I'm really excited to dive deep into the topics that you put on the questions before you came into the group. So much good stuff coming. But today, I want to talk a little bit about balancing over tightness and weakness in the pelvic floor, which goes right into preparing the pelvic floor for birth and postpartum recovery. Because often what you see out there is just do Kegels, do Kegels, do Kegels. And here's the thing. Kegels aren't super effective for many people. Why? Because a lot of us hold tension in our pelvic floors to begin with. And if you're experiencing pelvic pain, pain with intercourse, pain with insertion of a tampon or anything like that, it's more than likely your pelvic floor is holding more tension than it needs to. And over tensing it, working it in that strength angle with Kegels, not the most effective way to deal with those types of issues. Not to mention, when you're preparing your pelvic floor for birth, what's the first thing you think of? A baby has to come out of there, or that's the goal, is a baby to come out of there. So really tightening and strengthening the pelvic floor may not be the best option in that third trimester. So with my clients in my one-to-one coaching, what we work on when we're leading up to birth, even if they're planning for a cesarean, I incorporate lots of pelvic floor relaxation exercises for my clients who are preparing for birth. And I do a detailed intake form when I first start working with a client so that I know if they're experiencing over tightness of the pelvic floor, have questions in there about painful intercourse, trouble emptying the bladder or bowels. And these things can tell me whether or not coordinating pelvic floor with activity, like doing a Kegel with activity, would be a good option for them or not. Because for a lot of people, it's not really necessary to coordinate your pelvic floor with activity. It's not necessary to grip your pelvic floor or hold your pelvic floor super tight all the time. I know there's lots of advice out there. I saw one time that was like, every stoplight, just do a bunch of Kegels or do like 1,000 Kegels a day. And that's just not the best approach for so many people. So when we're working on balancing tightness and weakness of the pelvic floor, the first thing that I teach people is how to properly relax their pelvic floor and then what it feels like to get a full engagement and lift of the pelvic floor. So here's what I want you to do. I'm seated right here on my bench. I'm going to move my camera back just a tad so you can see my hands on my knees. I'm going to sit up straight and nice and tall, and you can do this with me. I'd love for you to do this with me and then give me your feedback of how it feels for you. So sit up nice and tall, and you're going to place your hands right on your thighs. This is called the pelvic floor drop. Now, I personally have struggled with over tightness of the pelvic floor. This is an exercise that my pelvic floor PT gave me that I have now passed on to many of my clients. So sit up nice and tall, untuck your tailbone so you can feel your pelvis, your pelvic floor on the seat below you, and then place your hands on your thighs. Now I want you to take a big deep inhale. Remember, as we inhale, what should be happening? Your core expands, your pelvic floor drops down. Having this feedback with a bench or a chair or even a ball can be super helpful to figure out what's going on with your pelvic floor. So hands on your thighs, take a big deep inhale. And as you do that, gently press down on your thighs. So I want you to try that, and then I'll tell you what you should feel. So deep inhale, gentle press down, and then as you exhale, let go of that tension, that press down on your thighs. So here's what you should feel with that pelvic floor drop. When you press down on your thighs, it kind of forces the pelvic floor to relax. So it gives you a little bit more feedback. So your pelvic floor is like, oh, we're dropping down. So what sensations you may feel during that inhale when you press down? A feeling like your hip bones are drawing further apart. You may feel like your pelvic floor on the seat below you. Tell me if you feel anything else that would be a good visual. So those are some things that help my clients, like hip bones drawing a little further apart, pelvic floor pushing into the seat. Yeah. So you should feel that drop. It's like the elevator is going from the first floor or the lobby to the basement. Now, if you tend to hold your pelvic floor tight, like if you tend to be on the first or the second floor with your elevator, you may notice a little bit more descent than you usually do. And then as you exhale and take your hands off, what you should be feeling is a lift of the pelvic floor. And I do my hand like this because that's exactly how it should feel. Your pelvic floor is from pubic bone to tailbone and hip to hip. So when I do this, I mean that all 4 of those corners are coming together to squeeze and lift. The lift is an important part. Remember, I always talk about the elevator. So this is where your elevator is going up. How far does your elevator go up? Are you able to get to the top floor and then hold for a couple of seconds? That can be really challenging. So this is the way that I teach my clients to balance out tightness of the pelvic floor and weakness of the pelvic floor. First, we have to learn to relax, and then we work on full contraction. And not just that, because your pelvic floor, as I've shown you in the breathing PowerPoint and in the alignment PowerPoint, your pelvic floor is much more than just the bottom of your bottom. It works together with all of the muscles of your core, of your glutes, and your hips. So what we're also working on is strength training exercises and working on symptom management strategies like breathing and what their alignment looks like day to day, where they're holding tension, and how that plays into their symptoms. Now, when we're talking about that 3rd trimester, preparing for birth, what we're doing a lot of is gentle strength training, connecting to your pelvic floor, feeling and learning what it feels like to bear down on your pelvic floor, inversions to help get the baby off of your pelvic floor and let it relax a bit. So lots of relaxation techniques there. I go through a lot of those in my 3rd trimester Comfort and Calm course. I'm happy to give you more information on that. But this is where we tackle all things like birth prep. You've got strength training programs. You've got pelvic floor relaxation exercises as well. Sorry, my phone was about to go dead. So that's a little bit about how we balance the tightness and the weakness and figuring out when our pelvic floor needs to contract and when it is more important to focus on relaxation of the pelvic floor. So this is your lesson for Thursday. I want you to go through that pelvic floor drop a few times and let me know how it feels for you. Are you able to get a stronger, more connective contraction of the pelvic floor? Are you able to feel your pelvic floor relax? Are you preparing for birth and looking for more ways to aid in pelvic floor relaxation? There are a lot of methods that you can use: perineal massage, red raspberry leaf tea, evening primrose oil can be very helpful. So all of these methods can be super helpful for, sorry, that was my husband, for preparing for birth, for recovering after birth, and for building strength without having to worry about bringing back that tightness, that painful pelvic floor feeling. So that is your lesson for today. That's your challenge. Do the pelvic floor drop. Let me know how it feels for you. And I am going to be popping in live for a Q&A tomorrow. You can join me on Zoom. I would love for you to do that, and I'll pop the link below so that you can go ahead and register. I would love to see your faces. Come ask me all the questions. It's an Ask Me Anything. So I will bring my A game and my pelvis and my ball and all of the knowledge in my brain. You just bring your questions, and then we're actually gonna scoot out this challenge a couple more days because I've got a lot to cover with you guys. You've given me some awesome questions, some awesome things that you want to learn and that what your goals are. So I wanna help you get there. If you know anybody else that would benefit from the information in this group, please send them the link. Let them join on up. If you know anybody that would benefit from the 5 days to a stronger pelvic floor challenge, again, send them the link. Let them sign up. Welcome them in. I'm happy for you to be here and for you to be joining me for these lessons. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I will talk to you tomorrow.